of North Texas already going downhill. We are already getting several reports of crashes. Matt Zavatsky with the Tarrant County Ambulatory Service MedStar live with us dark and early this morning. Matt, thank you so very much for being with us. Unfortunately, your crews have been very busy.
Yeah, just in the last 40 minutes or so, we've responded to 18 motor vehicle crashes. We're currently working them now. We've got 3 in the queue. 2 of these are rollovers, 1 with a semi. It is just a mess out there.
Absolutely. And Matt, what are you seeing specifically? Is it that there's a little bit of a thin coating of ice on the roads? Is it just water? What are you seeing that's really causing these issues?
Based on the location of a lot of these crashes and what our crews are reporting, most of the crashes are occurring on the west side of Tarrant County and on the north side of Tarrant County. Most of them appear to be, based on the addresses, on overpasses. So as you guys have been saying all morning, it looks like those overpasses and the areas that are subject to freezing are really happening. And currently we've got now 4 crashes in the queue that we're waiting to get to. So it's a mess out there.
Absolutely. And Matt, here at 6:35, I mean, there are going to be school buses on the roads, if not already, in just a short time. It's kind of concerning that this has started so early, but that they are still going to be on the roads as well.
Yeah, to see this level of motor vehicle crashes this early into the rush hour, we're not even really into the hard rush hour yet. Buses aren't on the road. Parents aren't taking kids to school. I'm certain this is going to get much worse as the morning progresses on. So people really need to reconsider whether or not they really need to go out and drive or not.
All right. And we've talked about the roads, but Matt, also another thing that we see, especially with you all, when the temperatures get this low, is hypothermia and people not taking care of themselves, or people who are experiencing homelessness, being stuck out in this.
Yeah, and we're prepared for that. You know, we started over the weekend getting the ambulances ready and making sure that we have enough supplies, but we know that this prolonged cold is going to increase the responses for hypothermia. So we're prepared for it, especially when you see crashes like this where people could be on the side of the road in their car for an hour, 2 hours, waiting for a tow truck, waiting for other help. We are just very concerned about the hypothermia cases that we're going to be seeing over the next 2 to 3 days.
Yeah, there are a lot of people, Matt, who still do have to get out and get to work, people like us, people who work at the hospitals and things like that. So maybe give us just some ideas of what we should be packing in our trunk just in case anything were to happen and we were stuck in our car for a couple of hours.
Yeah, blankets, absolutely. In case your car can't run, you got to stay warm. Certainly you don't want to leave your car running on the side of the road if there's a risk of carbon monoxide poisoning. You want to keep water. We don't want people to dehydrate. We saw that a couple of years ago with some of the people who were trapped up on the highway for a long time. Maybe some emergency snacks. Some good carbohydrate and protein snacks is a good idea. And please make sure that your cell phone is fully charged as possible, because that will be a lifeline for you if you need it.
Absolutely. For those of you who are just joining us, this is Matt Zavatsky that we have on the line with us right now. He's with the Ambulatory Service MedStar that's in Tarrant County. Matt, just one more time, kind of tell us exactly what your crews are dealing with when it comes to the number of crashes and how quickly this has developed.
Yeah, it's just in the last 45 minutes. We are now currently on scene with 20 car crashes, with multiple, looks like 4 more in the queue waiting to be responded to, and it's only going to get worse as the rush hour continues. So really reconsider if you need to drive or not. And
as you said, it looks like it's concentrated in the western, northern parts of Tarrant County, especially when it comes to overpasses, correct?
Yes, and essentially I'm looking at the screen right now, and almost every one of these crashes is on the highway, and I recognize many of the addresses, and a lot of these are the elevated portions of the roadways.
All right, and there are so many bridges out there in North Texas. So Matt Zavatsky, thank you so very much. You be safe. Best of luck to your crews in the next couple of days.
Thank you, Laura.
You got
People getting stuck this morning. MedStar, which covers Tarrant County and parts of others, tells us in the past 48 hours they've responded to 168 crashes, 14 calls from people suffering from hypothermia, and treated 15 people who simply fell on the ice. So if you can, stay home. We can't emphasize how dangerous it is out there today.
All right, Chip, thanks. Paramedics in Fort Worth are expecting another busy day as road conditions there continue to get worse.
Yeah, and you heard Chip saying we're already seeing some rainfall. Shannon Murray live in Fort Worth with a look at the conditions there. What are you seeing, Shannon?
You know, right now it's just cold. The wind is really blowing, and that's what makes it really kind of unbearable right now, is that wind. You know, the roads for us early this morning, driving in on I-30 from Dallas here to Fort Worth, not too bad, but you heard Chip mentioning those bridges and overpasses. Looks lights can be deceiving. And when we talked to those paramedics with MedStar, that's exactly what they said too. They said, you know, people really get a little too confident out there on the road. They think everything's fine, then they hit that ice, and it can be really, really tricky. We came across some of those slick spots yesterday. Take a look. This is video from 114 near I-35W. You see those semi-trucks stuck on the road near Texas Motor Speedway and a major traffic backup behind them. Quite a mess. And MedStar says since the weather event began yesterday, crews have responded to 142 crashes, including 16 rollovers.
What happens is you get lulled into a sense of security because some parts of the road are dry, and then you get to an overpass or you get to an area that's not protected and it's black ice and you can't tell. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have so many rollovers, is because cars start to slide, then they hit a dry pavement and it flips the car over.
Yeah, and Matt Zavodsky with MedStar tells us that really it's also those surface streets in your own neighborhood. So just trying to get out of your neighborhood could be really tricky as you're trying to get to wherever you're going. That's why they're telling everyone to stay home. He says right now those MedStar crews are not using lights and sirens because they're hoping to avoid crashes from drivers who are trying to move out of the way when they see a first responder coming. So they're really working on doing what they can to be safe and get to where they need to go to help people who need it. And, you know, Lauren and Brandon, I have to say, you both have been out here reporting in the cold at times, reporting on dangerous weather, and a little bit goes a long way. It's the little things that count. Matt, you know, with MedStar, brought me a coffee in a MedStar mug this morning.
That's awesome.
So shout out to him. What a great guy. He's the best. Not only did he come meet us for an interview when he's busy today, but he brought me a coffee as well. So it's the little things.
One of the hardest working guys over there. Awesome.
That it is. That's
Yes,
awesome.
he is.
Thanks for sharing, Shannon.
If you do plan to hit the road anytime this week, especially this morning, MedStar, the ambulance service, recommends you keep an emergency kit in your vehicle tailored for this winter weather. So what should be in that kit? An ice scraper, shovel, sand, or cat litter for better tire traction. Don't forget water. Don't forget the snacks. Take some extra warm clothing. Put that in your car as well, along with jumper cables. There's a first aid kit with any necessary medicines that you might want to put in, as well as a battery-powered radio, a flashlight, and extra batteries as well.
Information I just got in from MedStar. They just sent me a note saying that they are currently working 9 motor vehicle crashes, 2 rollovers, including 1 semi, and they say it really is a mess out there in Tarrant-Parker County. So if you don't have to drive this morning, that is the advice from MedStar right now. If you do not have to get on the roads, their best advice is for you to wait this out and not get out there. This is a live look at just one of those issues that we're seeing. This is I-20 at Hewlin, and you can see a vehicle did spin out. I don't know if you can see, but this car here is facing perpendicular. There's another vehicle just up above that one, but that was caused by a spin out in that area, and we're really seeing a mess along all of the major roadways around Fort Worth and heading into Parker County.
Earth emergency crews are working to stay a step ahead of the storm. Candace Sweat joins us live from downtown Fort Worth. Candace, we think the worst is still to come here, but I know crews are already really busy out there.
Oh, they absolutely are, Brian. We were able to spend some time at MedStar headquarters today, and by 5:30 this afternoon, they'd already seen 110 crashes. That's 4 times what they would see on an average day. And we know that Fort Worth roads got hit earlier this morning. We also know what emergency crews always tell us, and that's just to stay put, don't get out unless you absolutely have to.
If you could please just gather all the medications that you would take.
By evening, the MedStar call center was in full emergency mode. With more inclement weather on the way, they expect calls to increase dramatically. Flexible staffing allows crews to respond as needed, as quickly as possible. Over the next several days, crews will work rotating 12-hour shifts. At the height of today's calls, some 57 trucks were out and stationed to respond.
It's almost a trifecta of calls. One is going to be car crashes because we have a lot of traffic, a lot of elevated roadways. Those roadways freeze pretty easily, so we see a lot of crashes in those elevated roadways. Second, we have a lot of hypothermia calls. We've responded to 6 hypothermia calls already today. And then third, we see a lot of slip and falls. We've had a half a dozen of those as well.
The Fort Worth Fire Department, working in tandem with MedStar, also prepared for what the next 48 hours will bring.
We do have 2 blocker trucks now that kind of come back with the Scorpion equipment on the back of them to kind of keep ourselves and the residents that we're going out there to help stay just a little bit more safe.
And yeah, you know, we heard them talking about the calls that they respond to, the crashes, the hypothermia, all of that. And really, the bottom line is that can all be avoided if you just stay put, unless, again, you absolutely have to. And then again, talking to the Fort Worth Fire Department, and they said it's important to keep the threes in mind. And that's 3 days of water, 3 days of food, and 3 days of medication at the very, very least. But again, they want us to stay indoors, stay warm, and stay safe. Brittany.
All incredibly important reminders. Thank you so much. And some
Shara, we've talked about that ice warning today. Tarrant County is one of those in that zone, only adding to already dangerous driving conditions that we've been seeing this week.
That's right. So Matt Zavatsky from MedStar back with us by phone this morning. Matt, let's start with an update since we spoke with you yesterday. How are we looking?
Yeah, you know, I've been driving these roads for the last couple of days, as has most of our crews, and I just drove into our headquarters. I can tell you that these are the worst road conditions that we've seen since the start of this incident. We've got a couple of ambulances right now that are trying to get to calls, and they literally are stuck on the ice, and they can't even make it to the scene. So for your viewers, this is probably the worst driving morning, and it's going to get worse throughout the day. We had another 17 motor vehicle crashes overnight. 9 more patients that fell and got injured from the ice. So just certainly not a day to be out for any reason.
Well, that's a great reminder, Matt. We know that some roads have been treated, some roads have not. It has not been, equal all across North Texas. When it comes to problem areas, what specifically are places people should be on the lookout for, that people should avoid?
Yeah, surface streets on the side, side neighborhoods are just a sheet of ice. They froze overnight. When I drove home last night, it wasn't as bad in my neighborhood this morning. Sheet of ice actually slid down the road getting to my vehicle. The exit ramps and the entrance ramps to the highways are just awful. I just came off of 30 onto Altamere, and it is just glazed ice, and it is just very, very bad. So surface street surface certainly bad. The main roads are also not wet for drivers. They may look wet. I can tell you from experience driving in this morning, that is ice. So just be very, very careful. And again, if you don't have to travel today, please don't.
Matt, thanks again for the update. We appreciate it, what you guys are doing. So be safe out there. Thank you again for joining us, and I hope we get to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, yesterday we certainly saw all sorts of traffic issues
right now because the roads are a mess. People are also getting hurt just being out in this cold weather. We want to bring in Chief Transportation Officer from MedStar, Matt Zavatsky. Matt, how are you this morning?
Morning, Laura. How are you this morning?
I'm doing all right. We appreciate you being with us dark and early yet again.
It's become our thing.
It's become our thing. But Matt, unfortunately, in the time that you probably have not slept in the last 24 hours, you all have seen a number of accidents.
Yeah, since the start of the event at 5 o'clock yesterday morning, our crews have responded to 142 motor vehicle crashes. So the things that Samantha's talking about, that you guys are talking about, is real. I drove in this morning, and it's almost more dangerous this morning than it was yesterday morning because of the patchiness of that ice.
And I botched your intro there. It's supposed to be Chief Transformation Officer, and there's a reason for that, Matt. So with all of that information that you're talking about right now and just the sheer number of people that you had to respond to, I remember yesterday morning around this time, about 24 hours ago, you started seeing so many accidents at one time that you all started having accidents in the queue where you didn't even have enough people to respond. You were trying to get to people as fast as possible, which again lends itself to why people should stay off the roads if they can.
Exactly right. And the reasons that we want to make sure that we can get to the calls that we're responding to by doing so very safely and changing some of our response procedures. Even though we do sometimes have calls in the queue, we still prioritize calls based on potential severity of injuries, those types of things. So the calls that were rollovers or patients who had significant injuries got that higher priority. The calls that may be in the queue for a few minutes are ones that people aren't sure if they're injuries or the injuries are minor, they're out walking around. So we want to make sure that we get to the most critical patients first, but also make sure we get there safely.
Yeah, Matt, let's talk about that safe driving. There are people out there who do need to get to work, who do have to go somewhere. Maybe they're a caregiver for someone else, an older adult. So what are some safe driving tips, the best that we can? Because again, we are not telling people to get out on the roads, but if you have to, what are the things that we can do to stay safe?
Leave early. Make sure that you're not going to be rushed getting to your destination. Make sure that if your car is ice covered, which it likely will be this morning if you left it outside overnight, clean all the windows so that you can see really well. Throw some things into the vehicle. You know, a couple of blankets, warm clothes, some water, safety snacks in case you get stranded and it's going to be a while before folks can get to you. Make sure that again you're driving with attentiveness. This is not a time to be checking the NBC5 app. Wait until you get to your destination to do that. But you really need to be aware of your surroundings. You know, when I drove in this morning, there were parts of the road that were relatively dry. There were parts of the road, especially on the overpasses, where it was a sheet of ice, black ice, and you just don't know until your car starts to slide. And by then it's often too late. So just make sure you're paying good attention.
Yeah, that false sense of security for sure. Another thing, Matt, that I noticed yesterday when I was trying to just get some last minute things for the grocery store before we all came back to work is I'm noticing people with tires, Matt, that they should not be driving on. Maybe another thing we should be making sure of is that the tread is significant enough to be able to get out on this road.
You know, tread does help because we don't get a lot of really snowy and icy weather here in North Texas. You don't see a lot of cars with snow tires or studded snow tires like you might see in other parts of the community. But having good tires really helps, especially in areas where there's some wetness that's related to the road conditions. You know, the condition of your tires still isn't really going to help you in icy conditions like we see here. You know, my personal vehicle is a big pickup truck, four-wheel drive, and that's just as dangerous on ice as any other type of vehicle because even having really good treaded tires aren't going to help you when you're on ice. It may help you with rain and snow perhaps, but people should not have a false sense of security because they think they have really good tires, because good tires are going to slide on ice just like any other tires.
So I want to underscore what Matt just told us. For all the people who keep saying, I'm from up north, I can drive in this, I'm not worried about it, you still have to be very careful and stay off the roads if you can.
Absolutely. You know, I grew up in the Northeast and I learned how to drive in the snow. Driving in the snow is much different than driving in the ice. And ice is very, very dangerous. And quite frankly, Laura, these weather conditions are eerily reminiscent to 2 years ago where we had some very significant crashes that cost people their lives. Let's not have that happen again this time.
Amen to that. Matt, thank you so very much for always being with us. Best of luck to you and your crew. That's Matt Zavatsky with MedStar, the Chief Transformation Officer. Matt, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll be talking to you later today.
Thank you. Stay safe.
For those folks